So good afternoon. We are the Colombian Association of English Teachers, ASOCOPI, or Asociación Colombiana de Profesores de Inglés. We welcome all of you to this webinar. So before we start with the webinar, could you please let me know if you can hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I need to admit our... Beatriz has a question?
No. It was just a mistake. Sorry.
Okay. So we are very happy to see you here in our webinar. So before we start, I'm going to share some reminders. We are the Asociación Colombiana de Profesores de Inglés, ASOCOPI. So this is our board of directors. We have our president, who is Professor Jonathan Vázquez Guarnizo, our vice president, Professor Andrés Felipe Mican, our secretary, Professor Jonathan Delgado, our treasurer, Professor Luz Mari Quintero, and me, I'm the spokesperson, Wendy Panche. So I just want to remind you our journal, that is how, for you to send your proposals. We encourage you to send your report, your pedagogical experiences to this to the next call for papers. And we also invite you to participate in our conference this year. So as you know, it will be in Bucaramanga from October 1st to the 3rd. And we will have the pleasure to hear these speakers. So we have Professor Berta Ramos, we also have Professor Ryuko Kubota, Professor Samantha Curl, Professor Jesse Ortega, and Professor Dario Luis Vanegas. So you are kindly invited to this conference this year. Our topics for this year are transforming ELT contexts, saberes locales, diversities, and AI. So we encourage you to attend this conference. We will have our blended version this year. And now, this is all the information I have to share with you. So I'm gonna introduce my speakers today, our webinar speakers. So I want to introduce Professor. Okay, our webinar today is titled Colombian Teaching Experiences Abroad, Intercultural Insights for Language Education. And we have the pleasure to meet Professor Maryury Useche León. She is a professor, both are professors from the Universidad Nacional Abierta y a Distancia. Maryury shares insights from her professional experience in France and New Zealand, highlighting how Kiwi and Maori cultures reveal the connections between identity, environment, and communication. Her perspective demonstrates how intercultural awareness strengthens student-centered learning and meaningful engagement. And we also have Professor Jony Torregrosa, who presents lessons from his professional immersion in Nigeria, where English functions as a bridge within a multilingual and multicultural society. Through literature and storytelling, he explores how language connects cultural identity and human experience. So welcome, professors. We are very happy to have you here. And the stage is yours. So you can share your screen and we are all ears.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so you can start, teachers.
Okay. I was muted. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's for me a pleasure, a great honor. Maryury, uh, good afternoon. It's a real honor to be here with you, having a say here about what is our passion. Our number one concern that is how to prompt, how to foster our students, our pupils to use the L2, the language, not only inside the classroom but outside too. I think we are 24/7 teachers. We get up in the morning, taking a shower, having that nice cup of coffee, and I mean, about time to go to bed. And before we hit that second, after that, the idea of helping our students to use language inside and outside of the classroom is still there going around. So wonderful to have you here and to hold this conversation. Hello, everybody. And Marjorie, why don't we start writing with you telling us about your international experience, but also how do you bring this international experience in the classroom to make the miracle happens. The miracle and the great miracle is having our students being unconsciously aware, because that's when the miracle happens, unconsciously aware that English is right there. It's a tool and they have to use it. Mario, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to you, Jony. So, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So, well, first of all, I think that moving to another country and especially to another continent is challenging, right? So, I actually lived in France many years ago, and I also worked there as a teacher. I was immersed in the culture. I had many students that belong to different backgrounds, to different parts from Africa, from Europe, but Oceania was a completely different context for me. And it opened my mind in many different ways. As you can see here in the slide, there were the places where I worked. First of all, I worked in an academy teaching Spanish. It was called Euro-Asia. And we were teachers from different places in the world teaching languages. I was the Spanish teacher. It was the Russian teacher, the Croatian teacher, many different languages, a lot of languages. And I could learn a lot as well from my colleagues. The same is like the previous one, please. Let's see. The second part, so this was the first one. The second one that we have, it was teaching in an academy. It was teaching French. It was with New Zealanders. So I would like to talk a little bit about New Zealand now. What happened in New Zealand? New Zealand, it's actually called Aotearoa. The real name of New Zealand is Aotearoa. Why Aotearoa, you ask? But why New Zealand has has two names? I know that maybe because there was an ancient Zealand that it was in Netherlands. Many years ago, it was a part from Netherlands, but later it was called when the British arrived to this island, called them New Zealand. Why, guys? Here it happens something important, that it was a colonization process. It happens here in our country. For instance, if you go to Santa Marta or if you go to Cartagena, you know that Santa Marta was previously called Irotama. Irotama was the real name of Santa Marta before Spanish people arrived to Colombia. And the other one was Cartagena, that was previously called Calamari, was the original name from that place. It's the same with New Zealand. New Zealand was previously called Aotearoa. So today I would like to share a little bit about my experience, everything that I learned there, and how I could connect these experiences in my teaching with my students. How could I teach them? How could I help them, guide them, invite them to this amazing journey that it's learning from places, learning from people, learning from myself. So that's it. So in this context, I would like to talk about the environment. It's something that I think that it was the first topic that I chose, because when I arrived there, you know, guys, that here in Colombia, we have so many beautiful, amazing landscapes. If you go to La Guajira, you are going to see the most beautiful landscape, sunsets in the world. If you go to the Amazon, if you go anywhere that you go here in Colombia, it's beautiful. But when you go to the other side of the world, you take a flight that takes like 1 day. It's like 24 hours. You have to go to the United States, and then you have to go in another flight to New Zealand. It's really, really far, but you are right there and you realize that there are so many amazing and beautiful landscapes that you say, oh my goodness, it's just beautiful. It's God, you say. So they have beaches, they have volcanoes, they have mountains, they have a lot of places. And there is something that I like a lot, that is that they always are concerned about the protection, the environmental protection. They all, in all the contexts, in education, even when I was teaching their Spanish and French with the kids that was French, and with the adults that was Spanish, I had to be aware that teaching languages had to be related to knowing and to understanding the environmental protection and preservation. So that's why it's one topic that I would like to talk a little bit about. Here you can see the volcanoes. Here it's something, I don't know if you recognize this picture that it's below here, this light. It was something, it was a dream. When you travel as well, you accomplish dreams. It was a place that I want to visit many, many years ago, because I'm a big fan of The Lord of the Rings. A very nice and beautiful film by Peter Jackson.
Wow.
I like it a lot, Johnny. So I wonder, it's the Hobbit, is
Uh,
the movie set?
Ma-
Yeah,
Mario, sorry to interrupt you, but I guess when you're in the classroom already, and just the only or the unique fact of showing your students these beautiful landscapes in your pictures is a way you find to make them dream about traveling around the world just using the L2 English, right? That's one easy, practical way you find for them to dream about going out and say, okay, from today, I want to speak English because I want to travel around the world and meet people, etc., using the language.
yeah, you are right, Johnny. So something that regarding what you are saying, is that you can encourage, you can motivate your children, your students to say, yes, I can do it. I can travel, because sometimes we see like wolves. All the time when we want to do something, we see like wolves, but we don't have to do that. We have to see doors instead of walls. I always say to my students, instead of thinking that you have a wall, think that you have a door, and it could be possible. I never thought that I could travel to that place, to be in that places, to be working there, to have friends from that places. Here you can see some of my students and friends here right now. They were my students and right now are my friends. They belong to different cultures. One of them belong to one culture that I would like to share with you guys today. That is the Maori one, and then Brazil, and then England, and then Philippines, and finally Korea. So it was like the opportunity to learn and to understand many different ways to see the world. Regarding what you are saying, Johnny, I would like to say, guys, as well, that New Zealand is divided into islands. You have North Island and South Island. I live in the North Island in the second biggest city, that it's called Auckland. Auckland, it's an amazing place to be. People is extremely, it's not nice, it's extremely nice. All the time they are will to help you if you have any problem, if you have any concern, anytime, everyone. I was really surprised, and I was very happy, because all the time when I need something, my colleagues, my students, they say, teacher, what do you need, how can we help you? My colleagues as well, they were all the time working together as a team. It's like a kind of society that it has a very high quality of life quality, because they are all the time working together. They are neighbors, they are friends, they go, many of them, something that is important as well in that country is the religion. They go to the church, and they are really, really, really in touch. They know what happened with that person. How can I help that one? So it's something that I really appreciate there. Regarding this topic, Jony and everyone, and regarding the language itself, I would like to come back to the topic of Aotearoa. Why? Because I would like to share with you guys some examples. For instance, my Chinese students, once we were talking about the Mount Everest. And they say, teacher, what are you calling this Mount Everest? And say, because it's the name, it's the Everest. And they say, no, it's how English people call that mountain, but the real name is the Chumulama. It's from the Tibet, so it's the Chumulama. And I say,
What's the name again? Chumulama.
Chumulama, yeah, it's the
Okay, thank you.
Chumulama. And they said, and we were discussing, and we were saying, and we understand that their colonization process brought a lot of changes worldwide, but something that we need to preserve and to understand as teachers and as well as languages learners is that those kind of words and topics and experience need to be respect. We must be very respectful from the origins, from the words, from the traditions that every region, country, population has. So,
So I guess when you first made the pupils in the classroom, they start dreaming about you every day and saying, they go back home and say, Mama, when I grew up, I want to be like Marjorie, my professor. I want to be like my prof. I come from Atlantic coast. I'm very Samaritan. We say, when I grew up, I want to be like my senior Marjorie. I think they start dreaming because they listen to amazing stories about going abroad and talking to people, learning about cultures. It's fascinating, and that's a nice way. They want to see what they want to be in the future, what they see in you. That doesn't matter, of course. You know, we talked about this before, that we cannot make it as teachers if we don't travel. We can, that's perfectly possible. We can reach the same goals if you go and you travel 20 years, or you just live here in a town near Bogota. Perfect. We are teachers. That's what we study for. But it's fascinating that you can tell the stories just to foster your students' eagerness and willingness to travel. That's when they say, and I want to say that again. I want to be, yo quiero ser como mi sueño. I want to be like my prophet when I grow up. Right?
Jony, thank you for that.
Yes.
You're talking about a topic that I would like to share about with you guys as well. That is the cultural interaction. You can save your questions for the end of the webinar. Yeah, thank you so much for this slide. So we're going to, regarding this topic that Jony is talking about, we're going to talk a little bit about this cultural interaction. In New Zealand happened something that I like a lot, is that the colonization process was different from our colonization process here in America. Why? Because the native groups, the indigenous people that lived there were called Maori people. I had some students and some friends that belong to that community, and they are really nice people, lovely people, amazing. They are really big. They are very tall. They are huge. They are very strong. But why the colonization process was different there, guys? Because they were warriors and they were really organized and they like working like a team. All the time they were a team. So when the British arrived there, they couldn't kill everyone, or they couldn't Spaniards made here to establish the religion, the rules and everything. No, it didn't happen like that. In New Zealand, they had to sign a treaty. It was called the Waitariki Treaty. And they signed that agreement, and it was that Maori people, they could live together with the colonizer, with the British. They would live together for many, many years. They would share the land, they would share their resources, they would share many things, but each one of them would conserve their own identity, traditions, everything. So it was something that I like a lot. I had the chance to work with them guys, and it was amazing because they had like a kindness in them, and they love their culture. Sometimes I feel a little bit, I don't know, sad, because in our country sometimes we're not proud of our culture. We say, oh, this one is blonde, I like him, or this. It's different if you say, this one is indigenous, or that woman is French. She's blonde with blue eyes, and we behave in a different way. And I say, why? We are very valuable. We are very smart. We have a resilient. We have a very long history. Why we do that? So I would like to share with you guys this video that shows the haka. The haka is a very traditional expression, cultural expression from Maori people, and it symbolizes how strong are them like a team. So let's take a look. I don't know. Yeah.
Kawana, kapaka manufiriti ya kweu. Kamate, kamate,
So it's just a short video regarding this haka tradition.
E ono ngā poti.
Yeah, thank you. This one, it's another one that you can watch later. It's in the airport, and it's very beautiful. I like it a lot. Later we can watch it, and it's about how are they strong enough to live together, to work together. This one, just 1 second, and that's it. Okay, that's right. It was just a little bit to show you guys how it was in the airport. It was the baby, the boy that came back home, and everyone in the family, they said, you are welcome, we love you, and you are here. And this expression, this cultural expression, it's very, very common in New Zealand, in the Maori communities, because you can see here some pictures of them. They are very famous as well because of the tattoos. They are the best in the world, and as I told you before, they have like this intercultural connection or relation between Maori people and the other one that, let's say, they say white people. When I was there as well, for me it was a little bit weird to listen that word, because I'm not used to someone called me. I live with Indian, I live with people from India, from Sri Lanka. In one house we were 13 students and teachers, and many people from England, from India, from Sri Lanka, from Japan, from Korea, Maori, and another Colombian. We live together, and they always ask me, why do you like eating like white people? And I say, and I answer, how? Well, I don't understand. I don't get it. Why I'm eating like white people? Because they have like that difference, even though they live
Okay.
community, they say like
All right.
white people is the people that are Kiwi. They are called Kiwi, and they are the white that lived there. That they were the British that arrived there before the colonizer, let's say. And then you have the other group that is the Maori people. However, New Zealand right now has a lot of people from different places, from Asia, from China, from Korea, from many different places, from India, from Sri Lanka. You go there and you taste food from different places, and everyone lives together in a really really nice place. Everyone can discuss, can build a real society in a very peaceful way. That's what I like the most there, and that's what I like to teach to my students in my classroom. Jony, now
Marju, so but I think something similar happens to me. When well, I'm originally from Santa Marta. So in Santa Marta, I'm mulatto. In Bogota, I'm black. And in Nigeria, back in Nigeria, I was white. Okay, yes, very interesting. But Maryury, how do you use this in the classroom? All those wonderful things you learn in your trips, how you use it like a factor that strongly motivates your students to use the language, like say.
thank you for that question, Jony. So first of all, I always tell my students that traveling, life is a trip. Actually, life is a trip, and each one of us has a different path. Each one of us has a different path, a different way. But what I do with my students, mostly in my classroom, is to encourage and to motivate them to learn, to read. If we understand culture, we can understand the language. Because language is not just like words and vocabulary and learn 100 words and improve my pronunciation and learn, I don't know, 100, 1,000 words by heart. But it's more than that. We know before it was that, before it was learning and memorizing and learning by heart many words. But nowadays we know that it's not like that, that we have to respect, because some people say, what is the best English? What is the best Spanish? The best Spanish is the Spanish from Chile, it's from Argentina. What is the best English in the world? No, it's the one from the United States or from England. No. I always say to my students, if we understand that in our world we are more than 195 countries, it means that each one is different, and something that we need to do is to respect some all the countries, the accents, the expressions that they have. It doesn't mean that because it's English from Africa is better or is worse than the other from the United States. No, it's completely different, and we have to respect them. Jony, regarding Africa, I know that you went to Nigeria. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, I tried to make can I see the toolbox slide, please? Not the other one, the one that you had at the, okay, that one. Yes, I tried to make a long story short. Uh, I worked in Santa Marta in 1996. That was a long time ago in a pipe coating company. That was an American company that settled down there in Santa Marta, and I worked for them for 2 years. That was my job was quality control inspection, and then I also worked in tourism. So my job there finished. I went back to tourism, and in 1999 I came to settle down in Bogota with my family. And in 2005, a friend of mine who worked with me in Santa Marta in that company I told you, pipe coating, called me from Nigeria and say, "Hey, I have a job for you here. Okay, what am I going to do? No, you come here. I need you as a quality control assurance." I said, "You got to be kidding. I forgot everything about that. You crazy. I'm not going to do a job I don't know how to do." He said, "Come on, forget it. We're going to give you some training here. Once you get over here, you will get familiar with everything and everything like languages. Once you start practicing, language fluency starts coming back." So that's what I expected. And I say, why not? This is a nice opportunity. So I travel over there. And once I started working with Nigerians. There were lots of Argentinians there, very nice people. And I had the toolbox here. Why? Because the toolbox meeting is a safety meeting you do at 6 in the morning, 6 a.m. So that before you start working in the plan, before you start the plan, you have the toolbox meeting. And that's what happens now in my class with Maryury, because you offer your students a toolbox. We are providers. We tell them here is a toolbox, and you're going to have this and these tools here. They can pick a hammer, or they have, for example, a screwdriver. But we teach them with the screwdriver word that there's no way to screw up. There's no way to mess up the languages. And if you screw up, we tell them there's always a window in linguistics. So you have the screwdriver and you open the door that gives us the opportunity. But before that, we have to, making a word that languages is free. There's a lot of space for creativity, because if that wasn't that way, that would be really boring. So let's give it a chance to have that toolbox. Then you destroy something, but you have the chance to fix it up. So you have the screwdriver. Remember, you never screw up here. You never mess up, because if there's that clutter, there's always a time to fix it up in languages. So that's what I tell them. Okay. And in this same company, that's something I use in my classes here. In this same company, I tell my students here, most of the students, they have a nice level just to get by the languages in English once they travel, but they don't know. They have to become knowledgeable or aware of the level they have and be confident. For example, and I want to see the slide where I see the elegant guy just talking to another guy who looks a little bit chubby, just like me. Can I see it? The other slide. There are two guys over there, because I would like to tell a story about them. Okay, right there. So you see something that happened over there is that there were lots of Argentinians. That's why I was telling the anecdote of my students not being confident enough, Maryury, and everybody. Why? They can be B1, B2, B3. They go and travel to United States or Canada. They live 10 years over there, and they come back and they think they don't speak English. They don't have the confidence. And I tell the story of this guy over here, that elegant guy in the suit. Well, let's say that's not the same one, but I use the pictures. Pedro was in Argentina. And you know how confident they are. And Pedro was not the exception. Pedro has a very high self-esteem, and that helps a lot in languages, like in soccer, like in football. And why not to use it? Pedro was like, let's say, A2, what we call now. I don't like to frame as students of language learning that way, because it's absurd. Sometimes you can be one level in speaking and different level in listening, etc., etc. So you can never really say what level they really are. So, but Pedro, being that confident, he was the site manager, and he had in charge 1,500 people over there. And when he was going to the meetings, I was like trying to be useful. I said, Pedro, you could use an interpreter. I might help you. I said, qué lindo, che, pero tranquila, Jony, no te necesito, Jony, tómatela, yo me encargo. And that, yo me encargo, I take care, means that Pedro was very confident. He went in the meeting, I was with him, and with that English he had was enough for Pedro just to take care of everything, the operation, everything that was really complicated. So now, how to bring this into the classroom? That's what I tell my students. You have to use what you have, all right? And that's when we come to English for a purpose, for special purposes. English for special purposes means, okay, we have these initials. English, S, P, but I would say English, S, P, Y, T, X, C. The whole alphabet is possible there, Mario, because I tell it, you can use the English you have for everything you need. You can use the English you need for every situation you have. Or the English you have in your head in storage is the one that you're gonna need, so use it. There are those initials there that make him, like make you feel a little bit comfortable. They just settle in and they start talking. And I say, okay, what are you? What are you studying? I'm studying engineering. Okay, you imagine when you finish here and you had the beautiful career and a little bit of English. I say, yeah, but what? But that's actually really work. Yes. And I say, Johnny, how can you prove that right? I say, I can prove it right. I can prove it right because back in Santa Marta in 1996, I worked in a company by coding. There were Americans and Scottish people, and we all know how hard at the beginning and at the end, the Scottish accent is hard to understand. There were a lot of people, and more if you had to talk on the walkie-talkie in those times, right? There were some of my friends, Samarios, really hard-working people who were working over there, and well, we started working there as interpreters, etc. We was actually really demanding, but I noticed lots of my friends. I worked there for 2 years, and they came, Johnny, how do I say this in English? How do I say this in English? And I told them, you can say this or this. And then 1 year later, Maryury, you won't believe it, they were speaking on the walkie-talkie with the foreigners, Scottish or Americans. Why did this happen? Because they needed it. They said, Johnny, this is the only chance I have. I didn't finish high school. I didn't go to college, but I have this chance because these companies, they look for hardworking people who are able to send clear messages across. They don't want somebody who deliver wonderful, overwhelming speeches with convoluted expressions of words. They want somebody who has some work done and who in the meetings they can send clear messages across to the audience and to get by with what they need, even if they are high school students or even doctors or engineers. That's what they need. And I tell my students that can happen in the classroom, and outside of the classroom, it depends on the motivation.
Johnny, this is pretty interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And I have a question for you, Johnny. What advice can you give us to us as teachers, as professors, as languages learners, and also to our students to improve this fluency that you are talking about, and mostly the confidence when speaking a new language? Because sometimes I think that is as I told you before, we have walls and we have doors, and sometimes the door that we have in front of us is confidence. We're afraid of everything. We're always thinking. Today when we were preparing this presentation with the professor Luz asked us to talk about in this conversation, I said, Johnny, we have to prepare, we have to meet, we have to organize. And Johnny said, no, just enjoy it. Enjoy what you are doing. Talk about your experiences, talk about what you know, and enjoy with passion what you are doing. It's something that I like it. When you are enjoying something, you feel more comfortable. I know that learning a language takes time, and we can expect to not to understand everything in a few weeks. Also, we have to believe that we will do it. For instance, we have to imagine ourselves using the language confidently and mostly think, yes, I can do it. Of course, there are other things. We need to work hard. But at the same time, as you said, I said to me, we need to enjoy it and not get frustrated when we feel we're not making much progress, because always is a process. So which one or what
I would
advice can you give us?
pretty nice that I keep it very simple, I keep it very humble. I tell my students, you do what you need. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of discipline and you have to study. I ask them what career do you study, and they say my major is on this and this. I say, as you're studying your discipline in that field of expertise, remember lots of nights that you just swing study the whole night until the morning, and you get up and you feel sleepy and tired. You're really exhausted, right? But it doesn't matter how worn now you feel, you keep it up. The same thing with English. But the most important is that I tell, okay, you have one person right here, another person right here. You're speaking your English. That's what I'm doing right now. The person on the right side might say, Johnny, you speak wonderful English. Oh my God. I say, okay, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. The person on the left side might express a totally different opinion. Say, wow, your English, S-U-C-K-S. And I say, okay, it doesn't matter. All right. Because sometimes in life, you have to say, what the heck? I keep it up. And if your mental stability depends on not paying attention to what's going around, but just trying to do something that gives you satisfaction, we just do it. And that gets me back to 1992 in the hotels in Santa Marta. You remember, I told you we for some hotels. I'm not going to mention the name here, but they were bringing a lot of people from Canada, English and French. They were from Toronto and Montreal. So I worked like 8 years, and you learn a lot, right? But there were some people there too in the hotel or outside by the beach that they were the handcrafts makers, and they used to make like the handcrafts, the handcrafters. They were really nice artists, but they didn't speak English. They barely got by in French. And I said, what can we do here? So I remember sometimes the executives of the hotel called me, Jony, I need some English classes here. Can we sit down and have some classes? I say, okay, why not? I gave the classes. So they were always on enough. Why? Because these people, they had a big salary and they didn't need that much just to speak English to receive the salary that they were making over there. But my people on the other side, the vendors, they did need to sell things to take the food, to put some food on their family tables every single day. So they come and, Jony, can you teach us some French? That was mostly French, Maryury, because and that Quebecois, with a different accent, I got a little bit familiar with. So I really love these people. They love the country, and I try to teach my friends the basic French they needed to use to sell their items. Then after that, I noticed that they just started using those words and expression right away. That's when the miracle happens. Miracle happens when you realize that you need it. They needed it. Why? Because every single day they had to make some money to get back in the neighborhoods in Santa Marta and tell, okay, mijo, I got some money here today, so let's buy something. Okay, papi, I got the money and we need to pay our kids' school tuition. That's how it works out. So now we could use this in the classroom, of course, whether we had the experience or not. Yes, I'm pretty sure of that. We just have to tell them English is absolutely necessary. I have a very personal example, and I do it every single semester in the first class. I tell them, I have 3 children. They went through undergraduate, college. They have the master's degree there, but none of them would be working if they did not speak English. And they go, wow, is that true? And I say, yes. And yeah, like right yesterday, I had a student told me, Jony, I started studying English because you told me your story about your 3 children. I said, that's magic. The magic happens when we keep it really simple, we keep it humble, and we tell them the truth. True stories. We don't have to make up anything, Maryury. I think tell the stories. So well, maybe not everybody knows. I know you from a long time ago, and I know that happens to you with your languages, English and French. By the way, you're one of the best teachers I've ever met in my life. Congratulations, and it's a great honor just to share this time here with you. That happened with you and with a lot of people I know. Not all of them are teachers, but they found in languages the solution. We don't have to be 100% bilingual. I tell you, you don't need to know the whole dictionary. You don't need that. You start with something, then you communicate. Today you say something, then later you put it together, and you put it together, and on top of that, more and more words. Right? So you become happily and unconsciously aware that language is necessary. And that's the break point. And you say, okay, I'm speaking English for a purpose. It doesn't matter what purpose. Traveling, you're gonna have fun. You need the money. You need the job, etc., etc.
Thank you,
Application.
Johnny. It's very interesting. I would like to share something as well, Johnny and everyone today. It's like human connection. When you travel abroad, when you're a teacher, when you're a student, anyone that travel abroad, something that it's very important, it's human connection. Not just abroad, also here in our classroom, in our daily life, human connection over perfection. As I told you before, I had the students from different places, from different nationalities, from different backgrounds. First of all, when I was many years ago, almost 20 years ago, that I was living in France,
Wow, you still look the same.
I still thank you so much.
You get it. You're getting better and better.
But it was almost 20 years ago that I traveled there. And as I told you, I had students from many different places, and I learned how to talk to them, how to behave, and I could understand their different lifestyles, their different visions of the world. But when I was in New Zealand, it was completely different, and I understood and I discovered a new world in the good sense of the expression. I discovered a new word, a completely different word. For instance, working with the students, Asian students, students from the Pacific island that are Fiji, Tonga, all those kind of small island that we maybe don't know anything about them, about that place. Just the film Moana, maybe that we know, or this actor that I don't remember the name of this actor that it's very well known. This is very famous. I forgot the name, but working with them also helped me to understand the value of their or the principle of authority or otherness. That means that I have, if I want to learn a new language, if I want to share a new language with my students, if I want to open that path towards knowledge, towards the new language, I have first of all to respect their cultures, to understand them. Because, for example, as you said, as you previously said, Johnny, I had a student that had lived in New Zealand for 20 years, and they couldn't speak English. They were not able to speak English, and I say, but you have been living here for 20 years. How it's possible that you can't speak English? And they said, teacher, I'm afraid I feel more comfortable speaking in Chinese. Here we have many Chinese restaurants. Everyone can understand me, so I don't have the need. What you said as well before, the need. We have mostly as teachers, I can sometimes I'm like thinking about these topics because sometimes we start in when we're in virtual context, we start losing that fluency that
Mm.
we had, that we previously had when we are in the classroom, that we are teaching every day. But we are when we are online, sometimes we start losing that. How can we recover that if we are in a Spanish speaking country? All the time we're speaking Spanish here. If you go to the bakery, they are going to speak in Spanish. If you go to the mall, they are going to speak. Everyone speaks Spanish. So, in my personal opinion, I think that we have to continue learning all the time as teachers as well. Here it's one picture of one of my schools. I had to go. It was very funny because the island. I have to go from one place. There were like 10 schools per day. I have to go to one school and then to the other and then to the other one and then to
Wow.
the other, and I have to visit all the students, and they were extremely kind,
The
extremely nice,
same
and they were
the
eager to
same
learn.
the same day. The same day
The
you had to be
same day,
moving around.
Johnny. The same day, and they were eager
Mhm.
to learn. They wanted to learn. They were very. They wanted to know about Colombia, about South America, about our food. So I personally believe that this kind of experiences help us to understand, to recognize, and to respect not just our students, not just ourselves, but as well our colleagues, because nowadays when I am or when I meet my colleagues that they had a lot of experiences, not just abroad, here in our country, in our university, at the UNAD University, we have teachers from all the places in our country that have different realities, background,
Okay.
situations that
Sure.
we don't know how are the situations, and they can handle. I don't know how do they do, how can they work with that situations. Maybe it's extremely hard, or in some places we don't have enough resources, or even in our country there are some regions where students, I don't know how to say that word in English, maybe it's a kind of bridge, una tirolina. They have to take the tirolina to go to the school to work. So I something that I like doing is learning, and learning from my students, and learning from people, and learning from places, and learning from everyone and everywhere and everything, because we're all the time like discovering new things. Jony, what do you think about it?
That reminds me another story I want to tell you about Nigeria. I met these guys. They were all Samarios, two of them. One of them has finished high school in an Colegio Industrial, and the other one finished in Sena. You know how demanding Industrial and Sena were before. They're still demanding, but they were pretty much more demanding before, because I'm from a very different generation of years. And well, they went over there when I make them back in the market. They didn't speak English at all, not even a single word. But I met them in Nigeria, and I say they were already speaking English, Maryury. And for my surprise, they were speaking English. They were speaking Nigerian English. That's what they call Nigerian English, not Pidgin. They were speaking English with that Nigerian accent. Wow, that was amazing. I say, how do you do that? They say, well, and it's something that has to make us feel proud of a Colombian level of education. We're always complaining, luckily, and saying that we don't have the standards, etc. But once we go out, we feel proud of, because we know how well our professionals perform. They were not college students, only high schools. And one of them, Gustavo, my friend, was the workshop manager over there. You know what he had to do? He had to uh, try or interview the different engineers, right? Nigerian engineers, some of them with master's degree, and tell if they were right or not for the job. One of them. That's how he appeared in the country. And the other one was the production engineer, my friend Carlos from Industrial. And I said, Carlos, how do you do it? Jony, I have the need. There was the only chance in my life I had. And I had either to show what I get to these people, or I had to go back there. All right. Thank you, Jonathan.
We have 2 minutes left, so for questions, guys, thank you so much for being here. I know that it's very late and you have to go to eat something, to grab something, but
And
thank
we
you
and
so
we
much.
have to go too. I have a class. I think Mario, you have a class too.
We have the class, so 2 minutes for
Well,
questions.
Thank you very much for your conversation, for sharing your experiences with us. I think they're very valuable for us, of course, for the ones who haven't traveled abroad, because you are also showing us your cosmovision, your feelings. So I think that's very interesting, and that's something we can also explore, no, in our experiences. So I don't know, maybe if we have questions. So I'm gonna read some comments here in the chat. So the first one is okay. We have a comment by Edgar Trujillo. He says, "Maryury and Jony are my favorite teachers ever." That's one of the comments. And the other one is Leonardo Sanchez, who says, "I feel inspired by today's topic because I'm going to teach my C1 students how to describe places tomorrow. So I would like them to talk about experiences, the atmosphere, and culture." Okay, thank you very much, Leonardo. So, do we have any questions, please? I don't see questions. So, anyway, could you please type your emails on the chat for our attendees, maybe to send you an email or send you maybe in case they have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, thank you to our participants and to our speakers, of course. And we invite you to continue with our webinars and to follow us on our social networks. So follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. We'll be posting the upcoming activities, webinars, and of course, we have more surprises for you. So thank you very much. Thank you, Maryury and Jony, and hope you have an excellent day and
You too.
evening.
Thanks a lot. And thank you for having us.
Thank you. So thank you very much.